Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something massive. We're going to distill a millennia-spanning historical epic to explore the entire story of Babylon. We'll trace this fascinating civilization all the way from its humble foundation to its incredibly enduring legacy. You know, we hear the name Babylon all the time in modern culture. It's basically become the ultimate shorthand for both unparalleled human majesty and the absolute depths of decadence. But today, we're going to look at the actual facts, the hard history, and the profound blueprint these people left behind for the modern world.
So let's dive right in by stripping away some of those pop culture myths to uncover the living, breathing character of the real ancient city. You've probably heard of the mythical Tower of Babel supposedly reaching into the heavens, or maybe the biblical tales painting it as an empire of complete wickedness in the book of Revelation. Or, the lingering mystery of whether the Hanging Gardens were even real. But the truth of Babylon? It's far more fascinating, way more complex, and deeply foundational to the way you and I live our lives today. We are looking at a real metropolis filled with real people, unimaginable ambition, and eventual catastrophic failure.
To get through this epic sweep of history efficiently, we're going to follow a simple roadmap. We've broken this down into 5 distinct chapters. The city's birth, its coming of age under Hammurabi, its golden hubris, its tragic death, and finally, the echoes it left behind.
Let's kick things off with Chapter 1, The Birth of a Metropolis. This is where we watch our protagonist's humble beginnings, tracking how it became an unstoppable regional powerhouse.
It's really important to grasp the massive scale of time it took for Babylon to crawl from a simple settlement to a commanding metropolitan force. We are absolutely not talking about an overnight success here. For an entire century, it was just a small town, literally just a dot on the map nestled along the Euphrates River, relying on very basic mud brick architecture and early agriculture just to survive. Fast forward to the 3rd century of its existence, and we finally start seeing deliberate regional expansion. They're securing vital trade routes across Mesopotamia, controlling the highly lucrative flow of grain and textiles. And it wasn't until 5 long centuries that passed that Babylon truly rose to undisputed regional dominance. It was the slow, methodical build of irrigation canals, constantly shifting alliances, and steadily compounding resources.
Moving into our 2nd chapter, Hammurabi, an absolute law. As the city comes of age, it enters an era defined by a strict, almost obsessive quest for order.
Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that Babylon wasn't just growing in physical size. It was pioneering how human society itself was governed. Before this period, justice was, incredibly arbitrary. It varied wildly depending on who was in charge or just who happened to be angry on any given day. Hammurabi's code changed the game entirely. It was the establishment of structured, absolute law, effectively replacing human chaos and unpredictability with permanent written order. We're talking about 282 specific rules literally carved into massive black stone steles and placed right in public for all to see. This is exactly where humanity gets the famous concept of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Think about it. If a builder constructed a house that collapsed and killed the owner, the builder was put to death. Brutal? Absolutely. But it was also incredibly clear.
What's truly revolutionary about this era is how these uncompromising rules brought an intense, organized reality to the daily lives of ancient citizens. It was the establishment of absolute order and the rule of law over the empire. That's a massive psychological shift for humanity. It wasn't just about punishing criminals. It was about standardizing trade, marriage, property rights, even minimum wages. Just imagine being an ancient farmer and knowing exactly what you were legally owed for a bushel of barley, or a laborer knowing the exact silver weight of your daily wage, completely guaranteed by the king. It removed so much of the guesswork from daily survival. It gave the citizens of Babylon this highly predictable framework to build their lives around, which, no surprise, allowed the empire's economy and culture to just absolutely explode.
Which brings us to Chapter 3, The Golden Age of Empire. Welcome to the Neo-Babylonian zenith, where the city reaches peak hubris and enters its most awe-inspiring era. If we compare these 2 distinct eras, you can clearly see this explosive shift in architectural and cultural dominance. Old Babylon was very pragmatic, right? It was heavily focused on early expansion, basic survival, and those foundational laws we just talked about. But the Neo-Babylonian zenith? That is a completely different beast. Under rulers like Nebuchadnezzar II, the city transformed into a vanity project of totally unmatched scale. It wasn't just about surviving or maintaining order anymore. It was about proving to the rest of the world that they were practically gods living on Earth. This was the pinnacle of their ambition. Massive architectural feats completely defined the city's golden years. Imagine being in an ancient world where most structures were just simple, flat mud brick.
And then you walk through the towering, brilliant blue glazed bricks of the Ishtar Gate, right into a desert metropolis featuring colossal ziggurats, these massive terraced step pyramids just reaching up into the sky. And at the absolute center of it all, the legendary Hanging Gardens. Legend actually says Nebuchadnezzar built this towering, terraced oasis for his homesick wife, who missed the lush green hills of her homeland. To keep it alive in the scorching desert, Babylonian engineers likely utilized an early version of the Archimedes screw, a gravity-defying system manually pumping water continuously up from the Euphrates River. It was specifically designed to shock and awe visitors, a massive display of wealth, engineering genius, and frankly, towering ego.
And this golden age certainly didn't happen by accident. It was built on 5 solid pillars. First, Nebuchadnezzar's relentless vision. Second, the prestige of marvels like the Hanging Gardens. Third, unmatched advanced urban planning. We are talking about perfectly laid grid systems, massive defensive walls so phenomenally thick that chariots could comfortably race along the top of them, and breathtaking processional avenues that were centuries ahead of their time. This incredible infrastructure acted as the ultimate status symbol, paving the way for the 4th pillar, complete cultural dominance. Their brilliant art, advanced astronomy, and intricate literature set the trend for the entire known world. And finally, the 5th pillar. All of this was securely protected by the blunt, ruthless force of their military might. Together, these elements created an absolute juggernaut of a city.
But, as history shows us time and time again, every golden age has a tragic pivot. Welcome to Chapter 4, The Fall of Babylon.
Tracking the empire's final days shows us how incredibly rapidly the peak of overconfidence gave way to complete ruin and conquest. Remember earlier how it took 5 entire centuries for Babylon to slowly rise to power? Well, in just a matter of decades, it all comes crashing down. Decade 1 is the absolute era of hubris. The elite genuinely believed they were completely untouchable. History tells us they were throwing these lavish feasts, famously drinking from golden goblets, while rival armies were literally gathering right outside their city gates. By Decade 5, external empires breached those supposedly impregnable walls. And by Decade 10, the complex infrastructure completely fails, the population scatter, and this magnificent jewel of the ancient world literally begins fading into the desert sands.
The tension during this period must have been palpable, as these cascading failures rapidly destroyed the empire from both the outside and within. The primary cause of the collapse? That deep hubris and massive overextension. They simply expanded further than their administrative and military grip could actually handle. And this crippling weakness basically rolled out the red carpet for external imperial invasions, most notably from Cyrus the Great and the rising Persian Empire. Legend actually has it that the Persians diverted the flow of the Euphrates River so they could march their army right under Babylon's defensive walls while the city was distracted by a huge festival. This conquest led to heavily shifting regional power. Over time, new global trade routes were established that literally bypassed the city altogether. This economic starvation is what ultimately led to its abandonment. The city didn't necessarily explode in a fiery climax, it was just slowly hollowed out, starved of relevance, and left to rot.
Which brings us to our 5th and final chapter, a lasting historical legacy. Because even though the physical city was swallowed by the sands, the entire story of Babylon is far from over. So why does any of this actually matter to us today? Well, the foundations they laid are woven directly into our modern world. Babylon isn't just dusty, ancient history. It was essentially the beta test for modern civilization. The way your own city is organized, the way your local laws are written down and strictly enforced, the very concept of an ambitious, cosmopolitan center merging diverse cultures, these are all blueprints originally drafted in the shadow of those ancient ziggurats.
Step by step, Babylon gifted humanity 3 incredible things. Step 1, the written law. They taught us that for a massive society to actually function, justice cannot just live in the arbitrary mind of a king. It must be public, written, and firmly structured. Step 2, architectural ambition. They proved that a city doesn't just have to be a desperate place to survive the elements. It can be a breathtaking monument to human engineering, beauty, and cultural identity. And step 3, the enduring myth. Babylon became a very powerful symbol. It remains our ultimate cautionary tale about the razor-thin line between the brilliant heights of human achievement and the incredibly dangerous, destructive cliff edge of arrogance.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Looking at the complete life, the staggering peaks, and the ultimate death of Babylon, what aspects of our own society are destined to become tomorrow's ancient history? We build our own towering skyscrapers, we endlessly debate our own complex legal codes, and we undoubtedly suffer from our own modern hubris. When historians look back at us thousands of years from now, which of our modern marvels will have stood the test of time, and which will have been entirely swallowed by the sands? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating explainer with me.